And are we ready? All right. Good day, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nicole Jackson, Director of Education with the Center for Engagement, Environmental Justice, and Health. It is my honor to welcome everyone here today for one of our Climate Justice Fellows final showcase. Launched in 2023, this fellowship is a virtual program that educates individuals on the environmental and climate justice themes, empowering fellows with ties to frontline communities to address local challenges. Fellows progress through an intensive 10 to 13 week module curriculum, culminating in capstone or technical assistance projects like you will be viewing today. Excuse me. Having been a fellow and senior fellow, I am proud to have redesigned this year's program to be more practical and global oriented. We centered everything on real world applications through our empowerment science framework. And we say empowerment spelled INPOWERMET. And we say empowerment includes community based participatory research, citizen science, collaborative problem solving, and collaborative problem solving. Fellows engage with assignments rooted in actual case studies tailored to their community specific needs. This philosophy culminates in today's final assignments that you're about to see, and in a significant shift from uh, previous years, we challenge fellows to proactively develop their own initiatives, moving beyond traditional capstone projects. They gain hands-on experience working directly with Siege staff on technical projects from policy analysis to air quality monitoring. And this practice-based model, pardon me, was implemented to help us scale and expand our fellowship across a global network. So for the first time, we have welcomed this year fellows from across the country and from 16 different countries globally. And we found by doing so, it's helped us enrich our discussions and broaden our perspectives and understanding on how our climate challenges are all interconnected globally. Today, we are going to hear from Jessica Clark, Alana Lewis, and Jen Kim. We're going to start with Jessica, Alana, and Jen, then move on to Jen, and I will ask everyone to please keep um, our questions until the end, and then I will ask our fellows to please briefly today introduce yourself before you start your presentation. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Jess.
Hi, my name is Jessica Clark. My project that I chose was based on a community project proposal. I am located in Commerce City, Colorado. So my project is focused on the challenges and issues that we specifically see within our area of Colorado. Um, there are lots of different issues that we could choose from here related to environmental justice, and it was honestly a hard pick because there's so many that we could cover. But the one that I chose to focus on was related to water and water quality, including flash flooding that we sometimes experience here due to dry climates. We have challenges with water drainage and water runoff, and then also food insecurity due to the fluctuating levels of water and what that does to crops in Colorado. So I titled my project Green Roots Rising. The project proposal synopsis is listed here, but it's essentially laying a foundation for long-term climate resilience and food justice within Commerce City. And it's focused on local and state policies. For this project, I chose to center it around a duration of 3 years with a $200,000 budget for this pilot, which is meant to show how community-led and city-supported action can drive climate adaptation and food justice. A little bit of background on Commerce City, Colorado, including what type of challenges that we're facing here that pertain to this. I've got 3 different sections here. The first one is health data and environmental burden. Picked out a couple to focus on here, including asthma, cardiovascular disease, and air quality. We have higher asthma rates in Adams County and higher rates of cardiovascular disease. Air quality is a challenge here, specifically in the lower part of Commerce City because we have a petroleum refinery there, and it does directly impact residents that are living within that area. Second item is food access data. So I pulled a little bit of information to kind of quantify this a little bit more, but from USDA, they qualify Commerce City as low income, low access census tract, and and also containing 40% of respondents that rely on food pantries. We also have a considerable amount of food deserts here as well. A little more background, demographics and economics. So median household income is $76,000 per year. For any of those who are familiar with Colorado, particularly the Denver metro area, we are just outside of that or bordering it, it's considered a high cost of living area. So some of these numbers might feel a little high when compared to some other areas or maybe other cities. But it's definitely a high cost of living here, so it's very challenging. Our county and our city in particular has a high percentage of households which are Hispanic and Latinx, and 22% reporting not speaking or speaking English less than very well. So that is also enveloped into this program as well, including making sure that those communities are involved, and then also ensuring that materials produced are bilingual and that interpreters would be available. Okay, just going to speed through a little bit here. So in terms of the project, this would be the project schedule for the 3 years. So first year, community design labs, community stewards would also be involved in this project. And then within this project, there would be piloting bioswales and gardens. Second year would be involving youth agritech gardens as well into that. Doing more community outreach, public tours, soil and water monitoring, and also initiating community conversations. Third year would be the community-led climate resilience plan, evaluating the pilot impacts of the project, and then identifying funding to scale this past the initial 3 years. How we would look to define success. Put some more specific measurements in here, but in summary, what we'd be looking for in terms of the bioswales is to reduce soil nutrient runoff in the amount of 20 to 30% over 3 years. That is, I think that's a attainable goal, but there's a lot that can vary within that, but I think it's a great goal to have in terms of like the viability. Let's see, youth agritech gardens. And their involvement in this, we would want to see 1,000 pounds of fresh produce produced annually and reaching to 25 to 30 local households through school and community distribution. Of course, we'd like to see this higher, and I'd like to see the project amount higher, but I went in with a low estimation to see kind of what we might be able to do with that, and with hopes that it could expand in the future. And then social indicators of success, again, mentioning diversity measures, retention rate of community stewards that are involved in the program, as well as long-term community resident committees. Scope of work for the project: first, justice and resilience planning, community-led mapping for residents to define or to identify the flood-prone zones and the food access gaps. Co-design and engagement, communities and neighborhoods would be involved in this as well, hosting workshops with residents, focusing on green spaces, redesigning, and then also help to monitor the pilot or to monitor the garden soil and the stormwater management effectiveness. Budget breakdown, as I mentioned, I'd love for this amount to be a little bit higher. When I looked at small community grants, this number was often what I was seeing for those levels. So I went with planning on that scope. So budget breakdown, you can see I have everything listed here from personnel, materials to incentives and outreach. I do want to note though that uh, we would, if this project were to be funded, the focus on any additional funds that might come to it through either a grant or being fundraised or in kind, those would go directly towards compensation for the community engagement partners and stewards, so that they could have a greater involvement and they could move from part-time or periodic hours to more full-time hours. Now, going back to those partnerships a little bit, these would be some of the organizations we'd be looking at partnering with. Outside of the city in general, we have the CSU extension that I mentioned. Also, one of the schools in Commerce City that has a youth agritech program, STEED, we'd want to see their involvement as well. As far as local groups who are already doing climate justice work and with a focus on air quality would be Cultivando, and then Groundwork Denver also is engaged more so in like the gardening at green space. Engagement strategies and activities. So there are a few proposals here for how to engage the community and different partners, what that would look like, and the frequency for that. I know there's a lot of data on here, but just to pick a couple that I'd want to focus on. Community Stewards Program would be recruiting 6 local residents as paid liaisons and facilitators to the neighborhoods, which would be ongoing through the project. Community field days, which I think would be really important for measuring success and gaining community interest in the project, would be 2 to 3 times a year to do tours and planting days. Feedback forums and story circles, which would work really hard with incorporating the diverse residents within the community. So that would be looking at beginning, middle to end for that. I also wanted to make sure I listed engagement incentives as well for when we engage the community. It's really important to consider that if you're asking people for their time, that you're making it accessible to them. So stipends for the community stewards would be 500 to 1,000 per year. They, as I mentioned earlier, I would personally want this to be higher. So if there was any additional funds, it would go towards that. Childcare and food for all public meetings. As I mentioned, if you're asking people to be there and present, especially if it's after work hours, they've got their kids with them and it's dinner time, you're going to get a better involvement from people when you understand and respect their life, and that you're able to meet them where they're at. Again, along with that, transportation for bus passes or rideshare vouchers. Youth stipends, I loved adding this idea in there as well, of a stipend for the agritech participants as well. And then community honoraria for feedback forums. I included a policy index here with a few different sections. So the first one would be land use and zoning. There are a few items on here, but first one I just wanted to touch on vacant lot activation. So working with the city to identify and permit the use of those lots, which are plentiful, and those are ones that a couple slides ago there was a picture of some flooding near homes, and that encountered right off of one of those vacant lots. So instead of those lots just being like either concrete or very compacted, dry dirt, those would be the ones that we want to look towards to using those for green or food justice use. Okay, skipping ahead a little bit, stormwater and climate resilience. I wanted to highlight this one here, the flood mitigation planning with FEMA alignment. So this project would specifically build local data to strengthen the future applications for FEMA and flood mitigation funding, which would be important to look at for the future and after this project. And food access and urban agriculture. One I wanted to highlight here is local food councils and task forces. And we're already seeing a rise in interest in this locally here now. So we would really want to continue that movement in that direction. Equity and environmental health alignment. So these are non-federal based policies. So Commerce City specifically study the sustainability plan, seeks to promote green infrastructure and flood mitigation, community health. This project would be directly addressing those. So it'd be a great fit with what the community is already looking to do. Skipping down a little bit here, I also want to mention, the climate, or the Adams County Climate Action and Resilience Plan. So within the county, it's also supporting these initiatives, which align well with the project. Okay, and I will go ahead and end there. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my proposal for the city.
Thank you, Jess. I'll save my questions until the end, and then we'll move on to Alana. See if I can share my screen. Let's see from the beginning. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Let's see.
Yes,
Can
I
you
can
guys
see
see my
that.
screen?
Perfect.
Oh, let me go back. Sorry. I wanted to. Sorry. Just a second. Let me. Okay. Can you see it now?
We can see it.
Oh, okay. I just may not be able to look at my notes. Is there a way that I could do that to look at my notes that I have? Show meeting. Sorry.
I'm sure there is. I just don't know how to tell you how to do it. Like, I don't know the setup you have.
Okay, yeah. It's
Are
like
you using two screen or one?
I'm using one screen. I just wanted to be able to, let me see.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Let
I
me
don't know.
let me just give me a second. Let me see if I can email it to myself because I do have some information that I just want to highlight.
Okay.
Just a second.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Jen and come back to Alana. So right now we'll turn it over to Jen. Jen, you weren't on in the beginning, but if you could briefly introduce yourself before you start presenting, that would be great.
Yes. Hello everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Um, Hello everyone. My name is Jin and I'm one of the Siege Fellow, like Global Fellows, and I'm located in Austin, Texas. So my final project is focusing on Austin's heat issues. And today I wanted to focus on today I wanted to present a disaster preparedness plan for Austin's heat emergencies. Let me pull up my presentation really quick, and then I'm gonna share my screens in a second. Y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Let me change it to the present code. So first, I wanted to start by giving some context on Austin's climate. According to the long-term climate study, Austin has been warming at a rate of about 0.4 Fahrenheit degrees per decade since the 1930s. That might sound small, but over time it adds up, and there are more and more days with the max temperature reaches triple digit, like we can see it in the graph here. For example, in 2018, there were 15 days with temperature over 100 degrees. We can see that Austin is getting hotter, meaning greater health risks and infrastructure stress and also growing inequity. In addition to rising temperatures, there are also some heat inequities in Austin because of a history of racial segregation, which was exacerbated by the construction of I-35 highway. East Austin has been underinvested for decades. As a result, it experiences higher temperatures, has less tree canopy, more financial burdens to address those issues. These conditions make East Austin less adaptive compared to the western parts of the city. To address this issue, I developed a plan called the Uncode Red Protocol. This plan lays out a citywide framework for how Austin can prepare for, respond to, and recover from extreme heat events. Divided into 4 stages. First, as you can see in the slide, it's about advanced warning steps using multiple communication channels to inform people in advance about upcoming heat waves. The message would be in different languages and for accessibility and include locations of cooling centers, warning signs of heat illnesses, and safety tips to help people prepare. The second would be morning response. So during a heat emergency, a community group called Love Captains would check on vulnerable residents such as seniors, outdoor workers, and people without AC. And at the same time, city hotlines would expand staffing to handle increased calls for assistance. The third part would be during the afternoon and evening. During the heat wave itself, and that phase, public spaces like libraries and community centers, as well as some city buses, would operate as cooling and hydration stations, especially in high need areas. Real-time updates on temperatures, available resources, and cooling centers capacities would be shared through the digital signage and social media. And lastly, post-event evaluation. So after the heat wave ends, the city should collect data, such as the number of heat-related EMS calls, hospitalization, and shelter visits to identify high-need areas. If possible, community surveys could also gather qualitative feedback to improve logistics and community engagement for future events. To maintain and sustain this plan, Austin can leverage the existing Austin Healthy Adolescents AHA program to recruit and train volunteers. I think the training could be offered online or through community centers. Since AHA already focuses on community health and youth empowerment, provides us a strong foundation for expanding outreach and building local leadership capacity. And of course, one of the biggest obstacles would be funding, and I think actually this is an area that needs more investigations. But what I found is that Austin faces a significant budget constraints for the 2025 to 2026 fiscal year. According to the city manager, the city started the cycle with a $33 million shortfall due to limits on property tax revenue growth and cuts in federal funding. Although the government and state grants for climate adaptation could still help given this challenge, one option is to establish a dedicated heat resilience fund. This could be financed through small portions of existing revenue sources like parking fees or utility partnerships. And to measure success, the city should rely on both qualitative and quantitative indicators, for example, tracking reductions in heat-related EMS calls and average response times, and measuring the number of residents served by cooling centers, and collecting community feedback to evaluate accessibility and effectiveness. To ensure long-term resilience, Austin can also build on existing initiatives. For example, the city already offers rebates for reflective roofs that can reduce roof surface temperatures, lower indoor cooling demand. And Austin also has experiment with cool pavement technology, which is spraying reflective coatings that meaningfully reduce surface temperatures. I haven't actually found many recent updates on this program, but I think it's something worth following because of its potential for large-scale cooling in its public spaces. And when it comes to creative funding and engagement, I think we can go further. So, for example, the city could introduce community service stamps that reward volunteers for their time. So basically, after reaching a certain numbers of volunteer hours, people could possibly receive benefits like discounted tickets to major city events such as Austin City Limits festivals. These small but meaningful incentives could encourage sustained community participations and make volunteering more engaging. So also partnerships are also key. So the city could collaborate with the Office of Sustainability at UT Austin, where I actually recently graduated from. So it's for involving students in research, outreach, and program design. And engaging the university community could not only strengthen innovations, but also help identify new funding opportunities and pilot programs. I think ultimately this plan isn't just about surviving heat, but it's more about building a culture of preparedness and care. So by combining data-driven planning, community leadership, and creative partnerships, I think Austin can protect its most vulnerable residents and make the city more resilient in the face of rising temperatures. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Jen. We're going to save all of our questions until the end, and now we'll come back to Alana.
Okay. From the beginning. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alana Lewis, and I am a 2025 Siege Fellow based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'll be presenting, I chose project number 1, which is a advocacy roadmap. So I will be presenting my advocacy campaign, Cooling for Justice, Baltimore's Community Roadmap to Beat the Heat. So, the reality we're facing, the World Economic Forum has said that extreme heat is the deadliest climate risk of our time. It claims 489,000 deaths annually, more than floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, and wildfires combined. Extreme heat has been dubbed a silent killer. Extreme heat causes almost 500,000 deaths annually, and the rate of warming is accelerating at an unprecedented pace, creating significant risk for vulnerable populations. So due to urban heat island effect, cities are hotter than the suburbs, which occurs because of heat absorbing infrastructure like buildings, pavement, a lack of vegetation for cooling, and heat generated by human activity. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the heat island effect results in a daytime temperatures in urban areas about 1 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than temperatures in suburban areas, and nighttime temperatures about 2 to 5 degrees higher Fahrenheit higher. In humid regions, primarily like where I'm located in the eastern part of the United States and cities with larger and denser populations experience the greatest temperature differences. In the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Climate Science Special Report, Fourth National Climate Assessment stated that research predicts that the heat island effect will strengthen in the future as the structure and spatial extent of population density of urban areas changes and grows. So here we have our power map, many of these organizations and stakeholders I have marked as high influence stakeholders because of their role in the city, given their expertise and lived experiences. So we have the Smart Surfaces Coalition, who would be a strategic partner. We have Baltimore City Council, who are the policy decision makers. We have the Baltimore Tree Trust, who is a green infrastructure advocate. Urban farmers, they represent community voices. Baltimore Green Space, who would be a grassroots partner. Morgan State University, who would contribute to the research and outreach support of the campaign. And Baltimore Compost Collective represents community voices and would act as a grassroots partner, given the role of composting to reduce urban heat island impacts. This list just touches the surface. And as the advocacy campaign grows, there are bound to be more contributors potentially to this effort. Our campaign goal is a climate resilience authority. In June of 2023, Baltimore City Councilman Mark Conway sponsored a bill 23-0385 titled Study and Report, Baltimore City Climate Resilience Authority, that was later signed by Baltimore Mayor Scott in October of 2023. This bill requires several city directors to submit a report detailing how Baltimore City may establish a local climate resilience authority. A climate resilience authority is one mechanism for Maryland jurisdictions to organize and manage funding structures for large-scale infrastructure projects specifically aimed at addressing the effects of climate change. Our campaign, Cooling for Justice, seeks to raise the awareness about establishing the Baltimore Climate Resilience Authority to manage funding for heat mitigation, since the bill was signed 2 years ago and the report is still incomplete, which is delaying action in the area. We want to empower residents to lead advocacy and shape sustainable solutions in the interim and work towards developing and adopting an equitable resilience action plan. And so here we have our 6-month strategy, which starts out with community grounding, which would consist of listening sessions, door-to-door canvassing, some grassroots engagement. And then we have coalition building, where we will bring stakeholders together to have the opportunity to meet and develop a unified message. There will be some public education where we will facilitate legislative workshops, media training for community voices to humanize our efforts. Policy targeting, where we will have biweekly meetings to be sure we will continue to bring people to the table and give updates on the advocacy campaign. And we will also present a heat action plan and get input to finalize things. We will do some power demonstration, which is like day of actions, negotiations and discussion with any like policymakers or organizations who have input on this topic. And then also maybe some actions to apply some public pressure as well. And then we will have power victory and monitoring. Hopefully, we'll be able to secure some funding to support this effort and establish an oversight group to continue advocacy efforts post-campaign. I think the most important thing is like the advocacy campaign is wanting to get this authority established, but there needs to be some community input to be able to partner and work with that particular body as they look for leaders to lead it. And here we have why community leadership matters. A big part of this campaign is the community's role in its success. Meaningful community involvement sets the foundation for this advocacy campaign. Listening sessions, workshops are the first order of business to build leadership capacity, and residents will have the opportunity to share lived experiences to guide the advocacy. Community-led solutions ensure equity, accountability, sustainability through this advocacy campaign. And so what we're fighting for. It's important that the public is aware of this bill. Since it was signed in 2023, it's a good, it may be, in particular, that the general public just really doesn't understand what's happening since it has been so long. It's been 2 years and the report has not been produced. The most recent document I found basically said that the report is being conducted from May 2025 to June 2026. So this is a good time to run an advocacy campaign like this, just to spread general information about it. And to continue to advocate for funding towards heat mitigation efforts, there is funding being allocated towards these methods, and we would like the funding to continue. And I do understand that the city does have a climate action plan that touches on numerous topics, but given the severity of urban heat island issues in the city, there should be something more specific to address it. And so your role in this fight, if you were going to participate in this advocacy campaign, there are several ways to get involved in the campaign, from attending a meeting and giving your feedback on the issue, to volunteering to be a representative in our media campaign so people can hear your voices, listen to your stories, and put a face to this particular issue. And so the time is now. We can't wait because there are, we know on the national level that there are being some attacks on particular campaigns. I mean, on particular funding mechanisms that have been issued. Summer temperatures keep rising, and heat-related illnesses increase every year. So together we can build a cooler, greener, more equitable Baltimore. And I hope you get involved, be the change to cool Baltimore. And that's the end.
Thank you, Alana. Do we have any questions for our fellows? All right, well, if we don't have any questions, I do have one question for each of you. And so I'm going to start with Jess. So Jess, I wanted to ask you a question about metrics and evaluation. You mentioned evaluating pilot impacts like food access and runoff reduction. What specific measurable metrics will you use to define success for the agritech garden and the, what is it, the bioswale in year 3? For example, are you targeting specific percentage reduction in stormwater volume or certain number of families receiving fresh produce?
Yeah, good question. So, going to first starting off with the families receiving produce, what our aim would be for that one is 1,000 pounds of produce going to 25 to 30 families. And as far as the bioswales, the data for that would be measured over time. So that would be part of what the CSU extension would be involved in. So they would be collecting not only the water quality data, but also measuring the collection of that over time.
Thank you so much for that. My next question is for Jen. So Jen, I have a question about metrics for you as well. So but beyond reducing EMS calls, what are the top 2 to 3 key metrics that you would track over the next 5 years to determine if Austin is becoming more resilient and equitable in the face of extreme heat?
I think maybe top 3 would be starting from the calls that we receive. So we want to make sure that the number of the calls that we're receiving will be decreasing throughout, and also the response time would be getting faster. I think that would be top 2, and I'll think about the third one, but probably we also have to take into consideration of like the population itself. So not only the number of calls, but maybe the portion of the calls compared to the population itself. Yeah, that might be the top.
Thanks for that, Jen. And then my last question is for you, Alana. Um, well, actually, I had a couple questions for you, but we're almost out of time, so I'm just gonna pick one. Um, okay, great. So on your stake, it's on power and opposition. So your stakeholder analysis was a great map of, potential allies. Can you speak to potential organized opposition? So for instance, how might like real estate developers, budget hawk council members, or utility companies react to the demands, and like what is the strategy for navigating or overcoming resistance from any opposition?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think this question I asked myself too when I was putting the presentation together, because it was, since it is an advocacy campaign and it does deal with heat related issues. I was just trying to figure out exactly like to your point about utilities, because there are a lot of utilities based in the particular area. I'm not exactly sure them as opposition how they will push back towards this particular issue, but I know from just some outreach and advocacy that I have done personally for myself with utilities and that I'm seeing is that I guess they're drawing back on doing some of these more equitable and supportive community projects. Um, One example in particular, we have Pico here, which is an Exelon company. So you guys have them in the area as well. So I can probably still just use them as example, even though we're based here in Philly. But when I moved into my particular house, I didn't get anything from them as far as like a welcome or anything like that. But when I relocated to DC and then came back to this area, all of a sudden I got this package of like resourceful things like socket covers and some window trim things and different things like that. And I thought it was like very interesting that that happened because I had just got my house like 2 years prior. So I could see issues like that in opposition. But due to the heat island issue, I don't think it's anything that they can deny that the temperatures continue to increase, especially when we had that 100+ degree heat wave in June this past summer. And so I think it would be more of the hassle of will they make the proper investments in the community um, based on like community members uplifting that? Because I think one question and critique you gave me too is like, how would my post advocacy campaign group be supported? And I think that's probably ways that we would probably run into some particular issues if we were just expecting the city to fund the post advocacy group.
Thank you so much for that. Do you guys have any questions for each other?
No, not at this time.
All right. So if you don't have any questions for each other and we don't have any questions from our guests that joined us, I want to say thank you. And then I also want to state that you can please feel free to join us back here tomorrow. Excuse me, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Tomorrow's what, November 6th. Join us at 10 a.m. To um, welcome our next set of fellows giving their presentations. And then you also have opportunity to engage this evening in a session called From Redlining to Renew, where Dr. Wilson will discuss the historical impacts of redlining practices and their residual effects on climate change in underserved communities. So if you are interested in that, please hold on after we end the recording. I'll share the link. And then final reminder, Climate Justice Fellows applications, we have links for those. We don't yet have a flyer. Um, but if you know someone interested, please have them contact fellows@siege.org, or they can attend one of two information sessions, one on November 10th at 12 noon p.m. Eastern time, or one on December 16th, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And with that, I'm going to say thank you.